Hey, Chicken Johnny here. I'm in the editing room getting the next great video from Chicken Johnny ready for production, ready to put out on the internet. In fact, probably in 45 minutes it'll be uploading onto YouTube. What are we talking about? We're talking about watering plants. You know, the greatest mistake that I made my first year of growing my own seedlings was overwatering. My second year, the biggest mistake was underwatering. Well, they say that experience is the best teacher. It's just really expensive. But it is a good teacher, and I want to show you some of the things that I've learned. One of the tricks I'm going to show you is how to use a paper towel to check your seed wetness. Now, I get that trick from the Canadian gardener, Ashley. And if you aren't subscribe to her channel, just type in Canadian Gardener and find her channel. She has a lot of great hints and tips. Do me a favor, before we go down to the plant room together to see this awesome video, give it a thumbs up. Why? Well, because it'll make me smile, and you should want to make me smile. But it'll also tell YouTube to put this video out into the algorithm and cause it to go to many people so that they can see exactly what we're doing. Let's head to the grow room. You ever wonder if your plants had enough water, or if they didn't have enough water, or if your seedlings needed fertilizing? Well, we're going to talk about seedling watering in this episode. We'll deal with watering out in the field and in the greenhouse later, but right now we're down in the grow room. And I'm going to show you how to use a towel to determine how much water is in your plant. But first, let's talk a little bit about what plants use water for. Well, first, water is part of the structure of the plant. The cells are filled with water, and that makes them rigid. Now, your scrollincoma cells, they'll stay rigid with or without water. They're basically dead cell matter within the plant. But you don't have many scrollincoma cells in your vegetable plants. So we're really dealing with the collincoma cells and the perlincoma cells. Now, the perlincoma cells expand and contract with water as they perform the work of photosynthesis. And the collincoma cells, they expand and contract with water as wind blows the plants back and forth. Now, that's the cells. But only 1% of the water that the plant takes up goes into the cells. The rest of the water is used in photosynthesis, and more importantly, it's used in transpiration. Transpiration is just a way of saying that we're using the perspiring of the plant as a way to pull water up through the roots, through the shoots, into the leaves. Now, it does that through the xylem, and it does it through the leaf. The leaf, at the bottom side of the leaf has little valves called stomata. And those stomata valves open and close to let carbon dioxide out or in and oxygen out. Now, that's not how the plant breathes. The plant breathes through the roots. We'll talk about that at another time. But that action of perspiring water sucks more water up through the roots, bringing nutrients up to the plant, but also bringing enough water that the leaves can perform photosynthesis. So as the plant matures and gets bigger, and gets, let's say, to this stage here, this is a spinach plant, and its roots have gone all the way down through the bottom of the container. This is a pretty healthy spinach plant. I'll probably cut it off right here and put it on my salad tonight. You see, though, there's some yellowing leaves down here. We can just pluck those off because they're not doing anybody any good. Those leaves had too much water, and that's why they turned yellow. I let this plant go to a point where it is past bringing back, I think, and I did it somewhat on purpose. This is a spinach plant, and then there's a cabbage in the back here. I don't quite know how the seed for the cabbage got in there, but you can tell by the weight that there's very little water in here. You've got good root structure come to the bottom, but it wasn't getting water. And so this plant may be beyond coming back. We'll try putting some water on it. But this leaf, for instance, right here, you can see that it's folded down, and the leaf looks lifeless. That leaf is not coming back. So if you've got a plant that you want to save that's like this, what you want to do is come around and trim some of the outer leaves, some of the leaves that are very wilted, and any stems that have a bend in them, any stems that have pinched. You want to eliminate those stems. You don't want water going to them. You want as much water going to the center shoots. Those are your newest shoots, particularly in a spinach plant. Now, of course, a single stem plant like a tomato or a pepper, well, single stemmed in the seedling stage anyway, if they're bent over, they're pretty much done. Now, we can tell that this plant is wet because I can put my finger in there and I can feel the coolness of the soil, and I can also feel the moisture. Now when you come over and look at this flat, I don't know if the camera will pick this up, but something that you might notice is that this area is a light brown, and then there's some dark brown in here. And that's because the bottom of the tray wasn't sitting flat inside the grow tent. And so this area had some puddling of water. And you can see that the plants are held back a little bit in that area where there was too much water. I got pretty much 100% germination. I'm missing 2 plants here out of the entire tray. I've got one plant, looks like something's going wrong with it, but that's actually pretty good. These are peppers. These are actually Marconi peppers, and these are the peppers that I'm going to use to grow the largest pepper in Shed Wars. Now, these lighter brown areas, they may need water. This area in the middle, I can tell just simply by putting my finger on it, feeling the coolness of the soil, and also realizing that my finger is a little damp when I pull it away. But I'm not so much interested about the surface. I want to get down below the surface. And so I'm going to take a paper towel. In this case, I'm using a napkin. I'm going to rip a little piece of it off, and I'm going to find a spot, an area, where I can push down about 3/4 of an inch or so into the soil. I pull it out, and that napkin is still dry. That means I need to get some water in that plant. This one over here also looks wet, so we'll push down into it, or rather it looks dry, we'll push down into it, and it's a little dry too. It doesn't seem to leave any dampness on the paper towel. Maybe a little bit of dampness there. So let me go to this one here. I pull that out, and the entire towel, I don't know if you can see that through the camera, but the entire towel, that it's sucking moisture up into the rest of the towel. So that'll tell you whether you need to water your plants or not. Sometimes when you see a dark brown area like this, it isn't even that the plant is overwatered. It could just be a little bit of a different soil texture. So using the rag is an important part. So that's how you know if they need to be watered. But how do you know how to water them? Because you're going to water seedlings different at different points in their life. Now you can water from the bottom, and I recommend that, especially if you're planting something like an onion or something like turnips or brassicas, where the roots are going to grow rather rapidly. But peppers grow somewhat slowly, and they may not get a root down really quickly into the soil. So unless you can keep the entire plug wet by watering from underneath, you need to make a little check. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the plug tray out of the bottom tray, and we're going to look and see if there's any roots that have come down through. Now I've got some roots here, but I really don't have a lot of roots down in that tray. So I'm not going to put any fertilizer on this tray. I'm just going to spray the top with some water to rehydrate those plugs. Now the tray is wet. There's dampness under the tray. And I'm going to take my sprayer and make sure that it's wet underneath there. In this case it is. And I'll just spray the top. Now this one, that, by the way, that was, these are pepper seeds that I saved from last year, and it's the cayenne peppers. So this tray here, I can look, this tray is pretty dry on the bottom, and I've actually got a lot of roots coming through the bottom. So I can water this tray from the bottom and be fairly confident that the rest of these are going to get down into that tray. Now, what I'm going to use is magic blue water. I don't know if it looks blue on the camera or not. It doesn't look real blue from here because this is sort of a milk carton. And it's got sort of a white color to it to begin with. But magic blue water is simply a commercial fertilizer that's used for fertilizing plant starts. All the way up until the point where you transfer them out into the ground, you can use magic blue water. When I put mine out into the hoop house, I'll start using fish emulsion. The reason I don't use fish emulsion here, fish emulsion is organic, and the problem with it is that it takes a much longer amount of time for the nutrients in fish emulsion to become available to the plants. So I want the plants to be further along in the stage when they're waiting for that. This magic blue water is, it's got some nitrogen in it. It's about 8%, which I really would like to see something a little less. I don't want to get a great deal of upper plant growth. I'd rather have the growth be concentrated down in the roots. But there's also 2% potassium and 6% potash in this. I'd like to see more potassium, but this is what I have. There's also some other wetting agents in here that help the water to transport through the soil, or the soilless mix. And one of the things you want to be careful of, you don't want your soilless mix to dry out completely, because if it dries out entirely, it's not going to wick that water up. And even though you've got some roots all the way through, you just want to make sure that you don't let these get completely dry. So, by the way, I mix this magic blue. I mix it at a rate of about 1/4 of a teaspoon per gallon. So there's not a lot. Now you could use a Miracle-Gro plant food just for house plants. You do want to cut that down, and I think that that's about 12% nitrogen, so you don't want to get a plant that's got a lot of green on top. You really want root structure. So I'm going to put about 2 cups of water into that tray, and I'm going to make sure that the tray is sitting down flat. And this way, these plants are all going to be able to reach that water. Not a lot of it, but they're going to be able to reach it. I'm going to do the same thing with this spinach plant, once I'm off camera, I need to put it in the bottom tray. And then this one, I'm just going to spray the top. This is a Groundworks sprayer, and the way that it works is you fill it about 3/4 of the way up with water. You don't want to fill it all the way, but about 3/4 of the way up with water. Put the cap on, pump it up several times, and then you can spray the surface of that plant. And I'm going to soak this pretty good. Especially getting the perimeter. I just put quite a bit of water in there. I probably put 2 cups of water on there. I'm going to put that back under the lights, and I won't have to water that for quite a while. It's about 60 degrees in the grow tent. I have it at about 60 degrees because I want to make sure that these plants don't grow quickly. I've got probably 4 to 5 weeks before I can put these in the ground. So I'll probably have to plant them up once, but I don't want to have to plant them up several times. I don't have the room. So if I keep the room somewhat cool, they'll survive and they'll do well and they'll grow slowly. The only time you want to use fertilizer is when you're able to water from below. Don't use a foliar fertilizer spray on your seedlings. If you do, you're going to get a lot of yellowing of the leaves because you're going to burn the leaves. These are still just the cotyledons, and they won't need any fertilizer until they get their set of true leaves. Those true leaves will develop up above the cotyledons. The reason I like to put a little bit of fertilizer in there, even at the cotyledon stage, is because I'd like that fertilizer to be available in the soil when the plants need it. And so it's going to soak up into the soil. The plant may take some of it. At this point, the cotyledons could use the nitrogen. That'll cause them to progress a little stronger, but you don't want to put a lot in. I'm also going to top water this just in case I've got any seedlings that the roots have not penetrated down to the ground. They can pick up some moisture here. Primarily, I will bottom water everything. And in fact, I never top water my onions. I always bottom water onions. It's just tomatoes and peppers that I'll water from the top in the beginning. Everything gets misted on the top when it comes out of the germination chamber. And then that'll be the last time for a lot of things, unless I see the surface start to dry out. I want the very surface to dry out. That keeps me from having all of that green algae growing on the top of the plant. Now, I don't suppose the green algae necessarily hurts it, but it competes with it. Well, until next time, I'm Chicken Johnny. If you have any questions relating to the garden, you can watch the live show on Thursdays at 7 o'clock Central Time. And I try to have a topic that I discuss, and then I will also talk about your questions or answer your questions. So leave comments down below and click that like button and come on out Thursday night for the live. I know I'm asking a lot, but, well, I care about you and I care about your garden. And it doesn't matter if you're on Team Will It Grow or if you're not in Shed Wars. I want to see your gardens grow well. Hey, a little tip for the woodcutter and all of the gardeners on the Arkansas Woodcutters team in Shed Wars. Salt, just right out of the salt shaker, is perfect fertilizer to put on your plants. I'm kidding. I don't want anybody to do that unless you're on Arkansas Woodcutters team, in which case, salt away. Rock salt works good too. You can mulch in rock salt. I'm Chicken Johnny and Mitzer Shem. We'll see you again. Eat your vegetables. Give it a thumbs up.